Good morning, everybody. We're back again for another session. Going to be working on actually the Trello program instead of any more screen design, and I'll give you the reason why. That's because literally I've tried to do several things to try to make a Trello look like board, and I've settled on trying, I tried two loopers. They do have a break in loopers that allows you to kind of make a break, but it won't work in a horizontal, a vertical looper. It only works in a horizontal looper, which kind of defeats the purpose of what I was trying to do. So that's not going to work. I tried the internal window on it also to say, well, okay, well, fine. If you can't do this, we'll just put the labels in the vertical looper and turn around and a horizontal, whichever one is, lines across the top. And then put an internal window inside the looper. Well, that requires that you turn on something inside, the context looper, and it didn't work either. So because that was also disabled, it's not workable for that type of looper. So I've relooked at trying to do it as a table with a container, and I put an internal window in the container. But in order to fully test it properly, I really need some data. So there's two ways to get in data. Manually add a bunch, which is fine for the most part, or we can go ahead and pull the data down from Trello. Trello is the board that is used to manage his business. You can see where he's done this in the Trello board here, which is as the different boards and then cards within. This is what this is right here. So the question is, or the thing that we have to do is, we want to get this information out of here and bring it down to our system, okay? So that way we can do something with it. Trello provides an API. So they have a RESTful API. And the ways that I do a lot of the RESTful APIs, Pete and I both, is we use basically three tools. I use Postman as a tool for all the RESTful to kind of determine what's going on. This is the program here. It's called Postman. It allows you to set up the entire call based upon what you know, and then you can get the results back and see what's happening. Postman is an excellent tool. If you don't use it, I would suggest you get it. It is free. It doesn't cost anything. The other thing that you can use is, depending upon what it is SOAP UI, things like that. But I like Postman because it's really good for the RESTful calls to be able to figure out exactly what's there and what ain't there, and you get the data back and all that. The other thing we use is Google, because basically between me and Google, we know everything. And so what I've done here is I have looked up, and let me get rid of the looper stuff. I have gone through and did a Trello API list of boards available. I looked for different things that I needed to have, because what I wanted to do was find out what is the format that they use in order to go get their data. And this is what's being showed here. And this is what I kind of went mine with as well, and trying to look at the different pieces of this. The things that you need off the bat is that when you're logged into Trello, you need to get a developer API key. That's what this key is. Don't copy mine. Only thing you'll be able to look at is my boards. You need to copy your own boards if you're going to do things like that. So they're gonna give you, a lot of the RESTful APIs will give you a developer key, an API key. For any of their stuff. That's what you have to send with it to say, this is who I am, this is what I'm looking for. And then you can also generate a token, and that's the second piece of that, is the token that you need to generate. And that generation of the token will just come up and give you a token, is what it'll do. Okay? once it's done, that the token will give you everything you need, and you can just kind of look around and find whatever you needed to find to get your information. And once you're done, you create your class. So let's go into the class just to kind of go over it. The class, what I base the classes on is I put I put anything that I need to have in order to access up there at the top. Now, you can store that in the default manager like we did in the config. So that way, if you got a commercial deal and you have to have somebody say that needs to get in Trello, so they need their developer key, their token, and what board ID they're on, well, you can have them put it in the config and then bring it up and assign it to this in the constructor and just put it right here. Make it whenever they fire up the constructor, it goes gets the config and puts it in here. I don't need to do that right now. I may do it just as an exercise to show you how to change from this over. We may do that, but not, for the moment right now, we just need to get some data and get some going here so we know what we're doing. The other piece of this is we need to know what we're fetching. Okay, that's what we need to do. We need to know, okay, well, what are we looking for? Well, number one, we want the boards, okay, and we want to know what the actions and stuff is. Trello has pretty good documentation, not all of it great, but they are fairly feature rich. So you see we have in their home API docs, which you can look up, it has the different actions, boards, and things like this. So you got the boards here, and you can go through it. So a board may be more than one team, and you got your boards here. Now the board ID is when you call Trello and show a screen, that's your board ID. I found that out by just doing the Google search and saying, okay, how do I find a board? And it kind of told me, it said, okay, you need to have the board ID there, and going on down the line. Then I can say, okay, what kind of actions we want, plugins, stars, but the next thing I wanted was the cards. I need to know the cards that are all there. Okay. You also have the lists. This is the list, which will give you all of the lists and get all of this. Now you can look at the closest thing for you to do in WinDev or WebDev is look at the curl function, because that curl is closest to a HTTPS call as you're going to find. Okay, and if you notice that what he's got here is he's got the API boards ID. This is the ID of the board that I showed you. And then he says, I want the cards, I don't want no cards. I want all the fields, open filter, all the fields. Then the rest of it is, what is your keys that you're sending, stuff like this. So I can look through this and get everything I need. I can get the members. I can get the preferences. I can get many different things. Show list guide, show sidebar, all kinds of things I can do in here, okay? And this will let me find everything that I need to find, okay? This creates a new board, so I can actually create a brand new board from here. He can go into the software and says, oh, I need a new board for sending back next week. He can put that and we can create the board for him, okay? That's what it's for. So let's go through and write at least a couple of these and see what's happening. I want the Trello list, and you get the Trello cards. So right now, the Trello cards is what I'm kind of working with. And I went into Postman and I pulled it, got the information up here. As you can see, we go through this. Boards 1, boards, the board name. I want all the cards. My key is this, and my token is this. So that's the last two pieces. This is really one of the easier ones. Some of them do, header, authorization, things like that. Those are a little bit more difficult. Not once you get your head around exactly what to do, it's not hard. We can certainly probably go over sooner or later one of those. But right now, in essence, I can take this right here and I can put it in a URL and it'll bring back this information, as you can see here. That's what it brings back. So now I've got a couple of things that I want to do. One is that I want to know the layout of this to make sure I get what I want. It's giving me some information that I am going to be using. Now, I don't care about the background images or the press, to be honest with you. So what I should be able to do, we'll see, I don't know if it has press equal none. Let's try it and see what happens. So I come in here, let's see here, and what I want to do is ampersand press equal none. Let's see if that gives me what I want. It's either that or it blows, one of the two. Okay, a few seconds for it to go up there and do its thing. Obviously it worked, but it still gave me the press. So that didn't make any difference at all. So I'm going to skip by that when I read it, but I've got all the cards starting here, and this is a multi-array of cards. And the thing I want to check here is I want to take one list of this and I want to verify it against what I'm storing as data to make sure that I've got everything that Trello has. So I'm going to take this right here, I'll copy it, and I'm going to put it in my Notepad++, because that's the other tool that is, in my opinion, frankly, must use. And put it right here. Now I can see exactly what I'm looking for. And I need to look at all of this. I don't care about the ID members voted, short, attachment cover, labels are important, badges would be important. And then you got the short URL to go straight to it, and you can always click that and see where it goes. If you're confused and say, okay, well, where's that going? I can always highlight that, put it in the you want to see where it goes. That takes me to a record. That's what it does. That's exactly what it does. It takes me to a record. So that's a pop-up is what that is, and tells me whatever I'm doing here. Okay. So I'm going to go through this, and I'm going to check this against the data and see whether or not that we're appropriate or correct on all of our data for the racket tracker. First of all, and then we can actually fill in this and go from there. In looking at the repair units, does not coordinate to this. So I'm going to create another table, Trello, and I'm going to start mapping out what pieces go where, okay? So I know the Trello board versus where it is, and since there's multiple cards, you got the Trello board that's first, then you got the card, and then all the underlying information which we have in our repair units and our repair units history. So, well, let's make us a table here. New table. Oh, I got a new table. I don't want to do it this way. Okay, we'll do it this way. I usually don't. Call it Trello board. A lot of these interfaces, they put double quotes around stuff in order to keep it in case sensitive. in mode, in especially Postgres and in MySQL. So what I do is I just look at the SQL real quick and make sure it's in lowercase, and I go from there. So we go to the definitions, table space, fine. Fill factor, we're fine with that. Inherits from nothing, like nothing. Columns, let's go to the column names. Add. You'll find I don't really do it this way a lot because it's slower. It's actually slower, so I don't really do it. I've got an ID, which is our internal ID. Okay. That one there is a default value is privileges, security, variables. Definition, let's get this right here. Data type, we need big int. Okay. So don't care about the length or nothing. Definition. You notice I don't do this very often, that's right. And hit OK. Then we go to the next one. Board. That's going to be a data type of string. Okay. I need to do this faster than this, so we'll cancel this, and I'll just do it the way I usually do it. You can go through that process if you want. There's different tools that allow you to do it probably a little faster than that, but this is always my easiest method to do it, and I don't have any problems because speed is your friend. All right. So we open up SQL, paste that, create table on Trello board. Go ahead and place all these so I don't forget them. The ID stays the same, so we're fine on that. Let's remove some of these other ones and get started. Oh, we got one more here. All right. All right, so if we go back to our list of items in, we'll make this a little smaller so it can, I'm used to working with one screen. Usually it's on a different screen. We'll make this a little smaller so we can work with it here. Okay, put it over here on the side. All right, now we got our list. All right, that is the top line. Okay, ID is it. I can't put two IDs in there, obviously, so this is going to be Trello ID. And that's going to be a string, so we do a varchar 255 just to make sure I got enough room. And then we got check item states. That's a null, so I'm going to consider that a string. Closed is Boolean. Date last activity. That is a date time. So that's timestamp without time zone. Description. What I usually do with this, you notice it just turned blue. That means it's a reserved word, so we're going to do a Trello. I don't want to keep putting a W on there. Description. And that is, since I don't know how long that is, I'm going to make it just character varying. that means it's a memo field, basically. It can have as many characters as necessary, and it's varchar, so you don't store everything in it. Excuse me. So we got Trello description, description data. Do reminder. That is null, so not sure what that's going to be. We'll have to check that out. So let's go back to our Trello and see whether it gives us definitions of the different pieces of it. That's the wrong one. I'm going to go to this one. Okay. Description. Okay, so you can see the character length is 16,384 is the max on the description. That's fine, so we'll leave that alone. Organization, string, source, key from source, power-ups. Okay, so that's not it. So let's see what we can find here on cards. That's where we were. Card fields. Let's go to the fields. Okay. Check items. Okay, description true. Okay, so description is a Boolean. Okay, that's for badges. That's for an object badge. All right, this one here has quite a bit in it. That's got multiple ones in it. We can go on down the line to try to figure this thing out going on. And now we have the JSON, which brings back the badges. And we've got a few things dealing with this that we can look. Closed is false, do completed is false. So do completed is also description data. So that says two different things. So that means we're just going to have to experiment, see what we get back. Something may give us fits, and we'll have to change the type it is, because I'm not seeing anything here. We can look back further. I'll look a little bit further later on. Maybe it's under types. Nope. Nope, that's not it. Okay. So just have to look through, and sometimes you'll have to read through till you find what you're looking for. So we'll go in there and see what we can do, and I'll figure it out as we go along and let you know what changed, if anything changed at all, and go from there. Okay. So let's continue down there. Do reminder. We'll go ahead and make that a Boolean. As far as that's concerned, ID board. That is definitely a varchar. 255. ID list. Varchar. 255. ID members voted. I don't know if we need to worry about that one, because that should show a deal in there, and it would be an array of who's done it, and I'd have to find an example of it is. So let's put it there, and we're going to do that as a character variant. And let me explain how that works. This great thing about JSON, I can pull out a section of JSON, keep it as JSON, and store it in the database as JSON. I can tell in version 24, I can tell it that it is a JSON variable. Now, I haven't done that yet, so I don't know that it's going to cause me any kind of issues. But it can be done as a memo field for sure, because I've already done that. So what we're going to do is put ID members voted character varying. We're going to utilize it or try to use it as a JSON variable inside of version 24, not version 23. Version 23, you can only make it a text variable. So you can make it a text variable and then move it back into a JSON variable, and you've got all of the data that's there. It's real simple. It's pretty real simple, okay? So we've got that, and you can always tell it's always going to be an array because of those two little blocks. Whether it has any data in it or not, that's going to come back as a JSON array. And it's going to have one to many functions with it. So you just need it, do you need it or not? ID short, that's 48, so that's integer. ID attachment cover. Let's make that character varying. ID labels. That there is a multiple one, so we got again character varying. Manual. Cover attachment. Boolean. Name. Okay, so we've got reserved word there since it turned blue, so we got to go. Let's go with Trello name. No, I think I already got a Trello name. No, I got Trello ID. I don't have a Trello name. Okay. POS position probably. It's a number, so it's an integer. Short link. And then we got badges, which we know is also multiple. So you can see this is how it looks when it comes in as multiple. So I'm going to make that deal too, because I don't know whether I need to really do anything with it at the moment. So I can make it a badges character varying, and that will be stored as the array. Basically the entire thing in its own JSON format. Then we can always undo the JSON as we need to. Location, Boolean. Okay, we got T location. Now we got to be consistent. Trello location. Votes, enter. Viewing, member, voted. Boolean. Subscribed. Boolean. Fog bugs. These may be my own. Oh, this is all part of the badges. That's all part of the badges. These are things that we've done here, so that needs to go. We got to come down here. This is where we're at, because that's all part of badges. And here's how you know. When you highlight that, it comes down here, and this one's highlighted. Highlight this one, and it's to this one here. No, that's badges. So what are we doing here? Oh, okay, this one here is here to here. So it's attachments by type there, and then badges goes all the way down. So these are all things that are within. And then we got do complete. This is when it's supposed to be done. And that says false, so that's Boolean. do. It's null. My thoughts that that's got to be a date field. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and make it a, since we can have a date and time field on that, let's pull that back as a character varying, and I'll show you how to translate. I'll make it varchar 50. ID checklists. That is character varying. ID members, character varying. Labels, character varying. Short URL, varchar 255 be fine. And subscribed, Boolean, and URL, character varying. All right, did we get everything? Yes, we got everything. Okay. This takes care of that table that we need. And then, of course, we got to add it into, you can either import it into WinDev into the analysis, or however you want to do it, get it in there. And when I'm done with that, doesn't like, oh, time zone's 2 words. And badges, oh, I got it merged, sorry. And we're done. We got the table now. All right. Now, obviously, if you're using HF SQL, this is going to change a little bit. We may set this thing up to do both, but you would make a memo fields for HF SQL for anything that's deal, or you can make a JSON fields, which is basically the same thing, and that'll store fine from there. The the good thing about WinDev is that for the most part, 99.9% of the time, whatever table you defined in HFC in the analysis will work on most all databases. The only thing that you have to deal with, and the only thing that we deal with, is that we do modifications based upon whether or not the database is case sensitive or not. Okay? And the reason why we do that is if we're typing in a SQL statement or something like this, either I have to be totally case sensitive, or I can type it in how I want and let the engine bring it down to lowercase. So like when it comes to MySQL or Postgres or Oracle, I flat make everything lowercase and I don't worry about it. And it works perfectly. I don't have to deal with it. My code shows it in camel case and so on and so forth. Okay, so let's pull some data and let's see what we get back, because I'm a little bit concerned that the Postman pulled back things that don't belong to this board. So I want to pull back some more data and see what's going there. And what we'll end up doing is we'll step through this. We'll write the code here to call what we need to call based upon what we did in Postman. We'll bring back the data. We'll step through the data so we can see if we're going to run into any problems. And we'll then start looking at, okay, we got to assign it and everything into the analysis and go from there to put it into our database. But first, if first steps first, we're going to go through this and then finish up with at least getting the fetch Trello cards done. And what I'll do then is I'll go ahead and do the rest of the list, because there's several of them. It would take literally hours to do all of the different things that they have, okay? Which we're going to need several of these. We may not need all of them, but we're going to need several. So what I'll do then is I'll get through some of these that I know we need. When I come back with the next deal on Trello board on an API RESTful, I'll show you how to do the post side of them. okay, which is this right here. This allows you to create a board, things like that. So you got the puts, which is updates. You got the posts, which is creation, and then you got the deletes. Now, they did a true RESTful API. So you've got three different styles here. So we're going to be working with all three of these, and I'll just do shorter sessions going over each one as I go through this to make sure I got the right data and I don't mess up his current board. I may create a whole new board just to play with and see how this works, and that may be what I need to do, is just do that, especially on the create and the delete side, because I don't want to delete anything that's his. That would cause him all kinds of business problems. So don't worry about that. We'll create a brand new board and add and change and delete to it to see how that works, and will probably be pretty cool. Pretty cool. In the repository, there are several classes dealing with different RESTful calls or different RESTful engines out there. If you need to use them like for Stripe or email and things like that, and you need some assistance, go ahead and send us email. If we need to get on your machine, we'll set up with you to be able to help you get it configured for you, things like that. But all in all, after you get done with this, it's really not that difficult. It's pretty easy to do. You may find one that's much more difficult. Usually they're government. But as long as it's RESTful, it's not difficult. It's not overly difficult. It's the XML side that's usually 10 times more difficult to deal with. So let's do this and get it done so we can go from there. So let me bring back up my soap. And what I need to do now is I'm going to do a request is RESTful, is REST request. And I got to put in a few things, request.URL. Now here's the key. Since Postman, or since these guys put everything on the line, what do I want to do? I'm just going to cut and paste the whole thing in there. Now here's the kicker. I'm going to be replacing things as I go to know exactly what it is. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go ahead and send it board number, board, just in case. We're going to send it choices. Let's see, arg choices. And then then we've already got the key and the token, so we'll go from there. The reason why I'm sending the board is I may have more than one board, and I want to do that. Okay, I can always set that to be a default, but I'm going to go from here. So I'm going to highlight this, move it out of the way. I'm going to put brackets around it, and then I'm going to put my percent signs in there and call it board ID. Now, actually, argboard, I'm sorry. Let's go ahead and make it ID. Okay, so now I got that. The other thing I want to do is I've got all of these. Cards all is fine. I'm going to leave that alone, but I need to have this right here needs to be changed. Okay, that one needs to have a bracket, and we're going to put the percent sign in there and our choices. So that way, what happens is if I'm sending it that I want all of these, and not that as a none, I can do it inside the program based upon the tags from the Trello board on what it says I can get or not get in the list. Okay. Okay. So, and as an example, now let's go back to cards because I know I have cards here. Kind of give you a show on this thing. Okay. So you can see where I've got cards equal none, card fields equal all. Okay, I might specify specific fields that I want back, things like this. And you got the filter and fields equal all as well. So this would be part of those arg choices based upon what I'm trying to get out of the data. Okay, so let's take that out of the way. Okay, and then the next thing is I need my key. What do I call that? Developer key. And then we need a token. All right, now, some of you have not, may or may not been exposed yet to using the %sign brackets. We went through earlier, I believe, but we'll go back and do a quick review. Underneath the project, in the description, in the compile, there is a bunch of checkoffs here. This one says allow the percents in the string. The reason why that is there now is because in previous versions that wasn't allowed, and they don't want to break anything in previous versions, so they say you can turn it on or turn it off before you go on. New programs automatically have that turned on. What that does is the same thing as the string build. Instead of putting %1, %2, %3, %4, I can put the actual field name there, and I know what I'm looking for. It's pretty neat, pretty easy. Now, since I don't have anything else to deal with this on this, it's just the URL, I am done. Now, there's going to be other ones because you can go in here and do header. You can see where you got the header down here. There's a bunch of different things that you may have to go through, user ID, passwords, stuff like that. If you need to fill those in, you do. Trello does not have them. Trello does not have them. But that allows us to do things like that. I may pull up the one we use for Teamworks and show you that one because it's fully developed, and that one does have a few things in it, I believe, like this. So at this point, okay, that's it. Everything after this is data. The smart thing to do before you step any further, even if you're really good at this, is to see what the heck's coming back. See what's coming back in the REST response. You're going to need a couple fields. Number one, I want to put a JSON string. Okay, I'm going to do that. So that way I can move things into JSON there and put it where I want it. I'm going to need that. And then I'm going to need, we're going to be looping through things with it, okay? So I'm going to put a stop right there. I'm going to save everything, and I'm going to show you how we test and see what comes back. The way I do that is I got a global procedure, and underneath there, I'm going to create one procedure called test. This allows me to handle the whole thing. So I got Trell is Trello class. I can make it Trello. Okay, Trello dot fetch Trello lists. No, is that what I want? Cards. Got the board ID and choices. I'm not going to do anything with choices, so I'm going to make that a double quote. That's fine there. The board ID is going, I'm going to actually put Trello dot board ID. So that's the default one I have. Come back here. Now, we can make this even cleaner, and I think I will. Go back over here, and that's an F2 that got me right there. I'm going to arch string equals. Now, by doing that, that's the default, which means I don't even have to send it. unless I've got a value. I don't even have to send it from there. And that's all I need to do. So I put a stop there, and I hit the small go button. That's a run a procedure test. I'm going to hit that, run the procedure test, let it run through its thing. And it still runs through everything within the project tree until we get there. And then once I'm there, I can now go detail step through. I can step through here. And what I want to do now is I want to check to see whether or not I did everything correct on the URL before I got going. So I can open up the request. Here's the request. And I can actually see what I've done. Okay? So I've got an API Trello boards. I've got the board name. Cards equal all. Key is that. Token is that. And I can compare it against my Postman and said, that looks good. I can make this work. And we go on to the next step. So let's close that. And now I'm going to make one more step. I've got an error back. So it doesn't like something. So it doesn't like something in the request. So this is going to the response. Let's see what the response says. Nothing. So it didn't like something at all. Okay. If that's the case, now we got a little bit of searching to do. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to check a couple things. Okay. And this is what I check. I want to make sure that going across the URL, things are working right. So I'm going to take my Postman line. I'm copying that. I'm just putting in a URL and see what comes back. Well, you can see that everything seems to come back. I got all kinds of data. Okay, and that's cool. That's what I want. All right, so now let's go back to the program and say, okay, well, if you've done that, let's go see if my card has, if my URL, whatever I set up here, is wrong. Because something's got to be wrong in here somewhere. So I'm going to rerun the test again. And I'm going to grab the request. Right there. And again, I'm just going to put it in the URL. And see what it brings back. Hey, it brought back everything. So if that's the case, we've got something else that is a problem. And I'm not sure what that is now. Because it seems like everything we've done is correct. Okay? And there should be no reason that this did not can bring back what we were looking for. Should be no reason that didn't bring back what it was looking for. Okay. I'm going to research into this. This is going to be a short one. I'm going to research into it and figure out why it doesn't like what it's like in here. And because there's got to be something that's off. If you can send it through the URL on the screen and get back data, then it should work in here without a problem. So I'm going to have to do a little bit of research and work with this, and when I find it, I will bring back up and we'll do the next one. I'll explain what the heck happened here and then go from there and see what the problem is, because there is a bit of an issue there for sure. Okay. We shall see you soon. Okay, back already. Figured out what my problem was. I forgot to put an S right there. Here's how you can find out if you screwed up. Calling REST URL from here is not going to automatically switch it to HTTPS like it does in the on the URL of the website. You can see that it automatically switched that to HTTPS. We know we can't do that, or we don't do that. So what was happening here is it comes back and it says, boom, you got an error, and just looking at the response, you've got nothing, so you don't know exactly what the problem is. So I put in there my error string, error info, full details, just to see what came back, to see what the problem is, and let's look at that. Well, when I look at that right there, what it's doing is the same process, method, fetch Trello cards, not supported. Non-fatal error, protocol not supported. In other words, I don't have the right protocol. First thing on the list, oh crap, HTTPS. I also went ahead and added the HTTP GET method to make sure it's that. So let's run the test again, and we'll go from there and see what we get back. Okay, step. And you notice it's taking a whole lot longer. Okay, so now I've got that. If I look at my content here, it's taking a while because it's big, and I change it to JSON. It's going to take a while. Okay, now I've got all of the JSON data. Everything I need to work with. These are all of the pieces of the puzzle I need to work with. And I can rotate through them and get what I want out of that. Okay? So let's take a look at some of the read on this, and you're going to find it's not overly difficult to read on this. So I'm going to go with the cards, which is the first thing that I need to deal with. It is fairly simple to do. Usually I try to leave this up, but if I need to have everything, I can do a Control-A, Control-C, put it in my Notepad++. That way I have it side by side with me so I just don't make any dumb mistakes. And go back up there to the top where the cards are and go from there. Now, this is kind of like the same as XML. You gotta watch, you know, that you don't have anything. So we got preferences here. That scrolls down until you got label names. Okay. And then we got cards. So cards is a root level. So we know what we need to do there. And we can read through this. So let's get that kind of set up. Let's cancel the test. Get that out of the way. We can move this out of the way from there. And what we do now is JSON string equals resp.content, because that's what's coming back. Okay, that gives me all the data coming back from there. All right, one thing I had to do, and I needed to back up, is that in order to load data, even if you're doing it locally and you're deciding not going to store it at all, you still, I put in there to where we have the inherits. We've got this, and we got the Trello class, which I just created real quick. If we go to it, then I've got all of the fields that I put into the database, and that takes me where I need to go. Wrong one, Control F2. And I set up the constructor just like we did the rest of ours, so that way now I can actually use this class. And of course, doing that in order to stay consistent, I renamed it Trello Manager instead of Trello Class. When I put a class on the end, that mainly is it's a standalone interface class or something like that, and has nothing to do with the database, so I can keep them separate. But this one we're going to be dealing with the database. So I renamed the Trello Manager, created the Trello class deal, and go from there. So now we're back here, and we need to go from this point. What I do at this is I got JSON data, or JSON record, is variant. The variant means I can do anything I want to it, so I can actually convert the text that is coming back from the content right into the variant field and work with it from there. So let's talk about that for just a moment. There's a couple of ways to do it. You can move the content directly in the JSON string. You can check to see whether it has a 401 error, 404 error, things like that before you go any further. Step off from there, and then what you do is you do JSON record equals JSON to variant JSON string. Now, at this point, I've got everything with it. Actually, it's since we got sub things in this should be data, because it's all the data coming back for parent, children, and all, and not just a record. So we'll go from there. So we made that JSON data. So all the data is back. It's going to be in that JSON data. We can step through it, and the next thing that we have to do is step through the cards and get the data for the cards. That is really simple. For each, and let's call it card record of JSON data dot card. I believe it's card or cards. We'll know in a minute. Now, what it's doing, this is the root, and saying I want all of the array of the cards. If I don't need that, I can just put in like the URL part. I can put in my and let's declare the record structure because we hadn't done that yet. Trello record is Trello. So if I wanted the URL, all I have to do is say Trello record dot URL equals JSON data dot URL. Now, because that's a root item, I can just assign them. Now, if it is an array item like the cards and other things, you have to do a for each on each one of them. So usually what I do is I'll take all the single level ones and I'll put them there and get all that default data, and then I'll start looking for, you know, everything else that needs to go with it. So now I can do the Trello record dot do complete equals JSON data. Or no, I'm sorry, card record dot do complete. Now make sure that's all. It's like XML. JSON is like XML, so it has to be the same case. Make sure you got it in the same case. I have to. If we look at my Notepad++, we can tell what that is. Now, so you got some in Camelback and things like this. So let's take a look on the cards on what we needed to do here. So let's go. Let's do it this way to make things quicker. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to take one card. There's the card. I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to put it right here. First things first, we need to do a couple things. Number one, we need to get rid of all of these. So I can do that, and I can type in Trello record dot. Clean up the rest. I'm going to leave that out there because that's a little bit different, and you got to know how to deal with that. And I'm going to leave this one out here so we can know how we're going to deal with this. Okay? Then come out. Alt sign again. Equals. And then I need to type in card record dot. Highlight that. And I'm using the Alt key. If you haven't remembered, hold down the Alt key to do a block selection. Same thing here. Okay, so now I've got all this. Now we don't really have a Trello record description. That is Trello description. So it'll show you when something's wrong and you can fix it. Okay. That pretty much, boom, we're starting to get records. We would literally be getting records through here. So now we've got the Trello record ID members voted. Okay. This becomes a little bit different in how to deal with this. And the way I do it is I come up here and I create a little structure. So members voted is structure. I have no idea what it is, so we're going to put in member name is string. That's all I'm going to put in there because I have no idea what's coming back until I get something that actually has members voted on it. And so in our experiment board, we'll end up putting members voted and stuff like that, so that way we can make sure what we get back. You're really looking for the full gross information coming back more than anything. Okay, so I would do an AR members is array of members voted. Okay. All right. Now we got for each M record of card record, caps lock came on, dot ID members voted. Okay. I'm going to now do a members rec is members voted. Forgot that piece. Hopefully it's members M record name. We'll see what it says when we get something back and go from there. And then array, add AR members, member record. After that, once that's done, that's all in the array, correct? So here's the ID members for. What do I need to do from here? Pretty simple, okay? I can do a serialize into what variable? The ID members voted. I'm going to serialize array members into the Trello records ID member voted, as PSD JSON. And now that has put that in that field, so I actually have a serialized array of the members, if that's all the information we got, to deal with each one of them. That makes it pretty cool, because if I need to show the members, I can literally just take the take the class, put it up there, and boom, deserialize it into the array and show it on the screen. Because it's not like they're going to edit it. If they're going to edit it, that's a different story. If you're going to edit the data, then you need to have something to be able to edit the data. I'm not saying that you can't do that. They probably do have an API or something for that, and you still will be able to do it via the array even though you don't have a local table. If we run into that, I'll certainly show you how to do that. Like our teamwork class has no local HF records at all. It's all direct API to Teamwork. And Teamwork's a good tool. But that's how you do it. I just put them all in the array and I serialize it into the field it needs to go into, and I walk on to the next one and keep going. Okay? So we got ID short and attachment cover. And then we could do the same thing for the labels. So let's go on down here and take care of a few more of these. Badges now has multiple items in it. So we got to watch that one. That one's actually has data, so we'll have to do that one. So let's do the rest of these and get them out of the way. Or did I get that wrong? Oh, no, that's part of badges. So we need to not do that. That's all part of that array, and the badges is what that is. So these don't go there. Those are things we'll have to put in the array for the badges, so we'll keep that in mind as we go through. These we need to do. ID checklist, members, labels, then we got the short URL, things like that. And now let's see here. So badges is another one. We've got the same problem. It's going to be a child. We got ID labels, the same thing. So we can take care of those. Now here's something that you can see. The data's coming back with slashes wrong. It's a 5/16 T-nut. Okay. So how do you handle that? Well, that's pretty easy actually. What we're going to do is we're going to come out here and we'll do another equal sign, and now we've got the card record dot name. Okay. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do a replace. Backslashes with double quotes. Okay, so now what that should do is the Trello record name should just flat have the 5/16 T-nut instead of the backslashes all over the place. Okay, so name ain't quite what it is. Go back here. Trello name. Do I have manual? Should have that in there. Yeah, there it is. Okay, so we got all those. And then badges is a sub. That's what we got to deal with all the badges, and we've already done this, so let's take care of that. Again, you got the same problem. See the backslashes? So we're going to do the card record. We're going to do the, replace card record dot short URL backslashes with nothing. And I remark those out. Anything that's odd, I remark out the end and say, well, okay, this is what I got back. That's the reason why we're doing this. It's a lot better for self-documenting code if you do that. It's got that subscribed as Boolean, so we got that, and that's card record subscribe. And the same thing with this URL. And that's going to be a backslash. Close that. Put that out there. Oh, missed a D. All right. Now, once we're done with all this, and I'm going to come back and take care of the rest of them here. Before it's over with. Okay. I'll come back through this and pick up and do the ID labels just like I did each one of these. We'll review them on our next visit to make sure it's all there, and we'll show you how that is loaded into, you know, how it looks when you come back from a record structure. Okay, so right now, once I have all that done, it's a fairly safe deal. I'm going to do a save record. Since I'm in the class that manages the record, that's where the WX Manager part comes in. All I need to do here is put it here and tell it, okay, primary key is going to be 0 because I'm always going to add these. Okay. And I'm going to add those. Later on, what we'll do is we'll change that line 95 to look in the array of the records that are coming back and see whether or not the record's already there. If the record is already there, then we'll replace it and update it instead of adding it. If it's not there, we'll do it so that way we can do this and run it in background, because it took like, what, 3-4 seconds, maybe 5 seconds to pull down. So we don't want to make that forever, you know, for him. So let's, what we'll end up doing is we'll pull the data down and we'll use a parallel task execute to go back out here and say, okay, go check to see if anything's changed out there. And let's update the record structure to match so that way they've got the correct data from the Trello cards. Obviously, we will be also pushing stuff up to Trello too, so we'll be going through that as well on our next trip, our next session, and working through each one of these pieces as we go through it. Okay. I don't think. Yeah. And I got to just make sure my case sensitivity is right for everything. I got to go through the badges, and we'll go through the badges because that has several little bits in there. It has sub-pieces in it as well. So you're going to need to know, how do I do the sub-pieces? How do I do an array within an array, basically? And that's a pretty cool little deal, and I'll step you through how to do that as well, because it's not hard to do. It just takes a little bit of finagling to know what you got, but you'll be able to do it as well if you want to store it that way. So I'm going to let you go for this trip. Appreciate y'all being here. We'll go through this process. Remember using Postman, of course Google to look at the API documentation. Trying to find the easiest way to test it is probably the most fun that you'll have in doing an API for a RESTful call. And some of them are quite much simpler, which we've already been through a couple of them where we're doing the country codes and the deal. But usually when you got data like this, you got to go a little bit more difficult. That's why you have the developer key and the token. If you're going to hook into Facebook, you got two-factor authorization you're going to have to do there, so you got an OAuth that you deal with. It really kind of depends on who you are connecting to, is how difficult it's going to be to get it mapped out. Google has quite a few. I've done several of them, and they're not overly difficult once you figure it out. Greatest way to figure it out, in my opinion, is using Postman. Postman gives you exactly what you should be sending to them in a URL, basically. Because once you've done this, it shows you what you should send. Okay? It shows you the headers. It shows you the test results. It shows you everything that you need to know for this. You got header information you got to send. You got the body, pre-request, tests, authorization. So if you have authorization here where you have an OAuth or a authorization basic, that would be in there, and the parameters. So my suggestion is play with Postman if you don't do it already, and you know you have to get into APIs if you're going to deal with that, and kind of understand how this works. Remember the curl type, C-U-R-L, is the closest you're going to find to a straight URL call, and that's the reason why right there. Okay? So that'll help you get through the process looking for the curl. If you already know Python, Ruby, or JavaScript, then yeah, sure. I mean, if you're already familiar with it, then go for it. I personally don't, so I use the curl method because I've been able to understand those easier than other things. Okay, so that's all for today. Thank you. Y'all be good or be good at it. I'm going to try to work through some more things later this evening, get those done, and we may do another session in the morning. If I can't, I'll let you know. Thanks again. Talk to you soon. Bye.